10 years ago, I met my best friend Silver on an online game called Pixie Hollow. Although we know each other's real names, we still choose to call each other by the names we chose for our Pixie Hollow avatars even after all these years. Since our early days of friendship, we both held our relationship to each other in high regard because while we were young, we still understood how much we impacted each other on a daily basis and just how much we enjoyed each other's company. Actually, something that was really interesting is not only did we stress the importance of our friendship, but so did our mutual friends that knew us. They all respected us, our loyalty, and love towards each other. I remember that some Pixie Hollow players made art of me and Sil together saying that our friendship inspired them. I still have one of them saved to my computer as it warms my heart both now and then. I think to each other, Sil and I are like warm blankets or bats on a cold rainy day, equal parts comfortable, familiar, and brilliant. A type of feeling that you can't really describe with words. Sil and I always discuss how extraordinary our story is because it's really out here being way more interesting than most movies or celebrity love stories. Silver and I met in 2011. For context, we were both in elementary school when we met, and currently we are both attending university. In a strange coincidence, the way we first met ties back to how we are now. Silver and I met at a mutual friend's house on Pixie Hollow where they were hosting a school, and so Sil and I literally met while role-playing as college students, and now we actually are college students. To this day, we still think it's absolutely hilarious. I think the reason why we clicked right away is because of our styles of storytelling was similar in the sense that we both had a preference for high-stakes drama mixed in with the ordinary adventures of daily life. We both love to focus on the development of ourselves and our relationship to each other throughout the story, so instead of the plot being the driving force, we would instead allow the plot to unfold naturally depending on how our characters would evolve over time. What was apparent from the beginning was that Sil and I were each other's escape from the harsh circumstances of our childhoods. While we faced different issues in life, we both understood our problems in the same way as each other, and this honestly really shows within our storytelling. Even from a young age, our stories would almost always involve darker and more mature themes because that was what we were dealing with throughout our adolescent years. For me personally, the types of things I could talk to Sil about were not the type of things I could confide anybody else about. Nobody around me had experienced a lot of the gloomy circumstances of my life, so they would treat my experiences as if it was taboo or exotic. With Silver, it never felt that way. We could talk to each other about anything without it being treated as uncomfortable because it really wasn't. This wasn't some type of controversial new TV show people could argue about whether or not they should be exposed to. This was our real lives that we had to live every single day over and over again. Anyways, after we met, we started to go on Pixie Hollow every day after school to hang out, tell stories, and roleplay together. We would often be online together until we had to go eat dinner or do homework. Because we were in elementary school, we didn't have as much freedom to spend time with each other as much as we did in middle school and high school. We very much became a part of each other's day-to-day life. What really strikes me as memorable even now is that towards the end of 2011, my family and I were moving to a different state, so I wasn't able to go on Pixie Hollow for at least a few days. Once I was able to get back onto Pixie Hollow, now on the other side of the country, Sil, along with some of our mutual friends, had asked me where and why I was gone for so long, with Sil stating she was really worried about me. From 2012 to 2014, I'd say that our friendship grew even deeper. At this point, we would still go on Pixie Hollow every day after school together, but it was also during this time we started to branch out onto other websites as well. Luckily, due to Pixie Hollow's chat filter being super easy to get around, Sil had introduced me to the Pixie Hollow forums. And due to the lack of restrictions on the forums, we were able to establish more permanent and reliable ways to contact each other, such as social media and later on, exchanging phone numbers. This was also when we started to talk to each other and hang out for hours at a time. During summertime or weekends, we would easily be online together, starting from morning all the way to the latest hours of the night. This gave us time to do other things outside of role-playing and creating stories, such as being able to suggest and check out recommendations that we would have for each other in real time, video chat on TinyChat, and discover other online games and websites. Looking back, I'm so grateful that we decided to diversify to other online spaces and ways to communicate with each other because in 2013, we got news that Pixie Hollow was shutting down. 2013 also so happened to be a very rough period in our friendship for more than one reason. Although we grew closer as the days went by, we also started to fight a lot more. These fights were literally about nothing important at all, but as most tweens are, we were both exceptionally sensitive, and these fights, no matter how petty or unimportant they were, would still hurt the both of us at the end of the day. Luckily, we would always make up at one point or another, despite how messy the outcomes could be from these arguments. Regardless of this instability between us, we would still hang out with each other other every day. And because we both knew Pixie Hollow was shutting down, it was now a race against time for us to both find an alternate game and to enjoy the remaining time we had on the site. We ended up deciding that Woo's World and Our World would be our replacement. A lot of the summer was spent establishing our stories on those two websites while also tying up any loose ends that may have remained in the ones we made on Pixie Hollow. While our story had a happy ending on there, knowing that we couldn't go back on Pixie Hollow after it was gone left a very bittersweet taste in our mouths. It was where we met and nurtured our friendship after all. Every place there had a significant meaning to us or was heavily intertwined with our lives on there. Even if Pixie Hollow started out as an escape, it ended up being a place of catharsis, creativity, love, and community for the both of us. Once Pixie Hollow shut down, we shifted our focus onto Woo's World and Our World, but later on we'd mostly just play Our World, which appealed more to our preferences towards uniqueness and individuality. And in hindsight, I'm happy that we retained both of those characteristics even to this day, as we shine brighter because of it. No matter how much turmoil is associated with this era in our friendship, something really sweet that came out of it was that this was the time we started to refer to each other as soulmates, a term we still use to describe our relationship to each other. We both think about faith a lot and how it played a role in our friendship. I think it would be accurate to say that we both agree that our connection to each other is impossible to sever and that our lives will forever be intertwined. For a while, our fights started to mellow out early into our teenage years, and that allowed our bond to mend once again. Because high school made our lives miserable and busy, we no longer had time to roleplay every day. When we did, it was predominantly on Our World, and our stories were just as creative, ambitious, and beautiful as they were on Pixie Hollow. Our World gave us the freedom to explore newer concepts that coincided with our teenage selves, especially in terms of aesthetics, fashion, and how we perceived ourselves as changing individuals. Even with restrictions on our time, we still talk to each other daily throughout the majority of the day, either through social media or text messages. I find it so endearing that we would literally be talking about anything and everything, and yet no conversation with Sil ever felt boring or uninteresting to me. Whether we were talking about the integrity of popular YouTubers or hashing out the details of our mundane lives in our less than impressive dusty-ass towns, anything we would discuss about with each other felt captivating and significant. With most ups comes a down, and our down came in the form of two major fights that happened during towards the middle of this era. We didn't speak for months after those happened. And I realize now how easy it could have been to turn away and ignore each other forever, considering that our friendship was born and raised on the internet. But as you can see from the fact that I'm making this video, we didn't. We came back, apologized to each other, and moved on because at the end of it all, we cared deeply about each other. In the absence of one another, I believe Silver and I felt a significant amount of pain in our lives that we definitely did not need on top of everything else we had to deal with at the time. I'm incredibly grateful that we haven't fought to this day since then. On a much more positive note, it was during this time that Silver and I would explore our creativity together in different ways other than through the medium of roleplaying. We ended up running a joint aesthetic photography Instagram account. We had a ton of fun coming up with ideas for pictures, taking those pictures and then editing them. Sil was the one who came up with and selected which aesthetic we would be following. She decided on grunge, and she had also come up with the editing settings as well. I still have the piece of paper on which I wrote them all down so that I wouldn't forget. Of course, we also ran our blog Where Did Birdie Go as well. I made a separate video on that, so I'll put the link in the description below in case anybody wants to check it out. In a way, the Instagram account was the product of Silver's mind, and the blog was a product of mine. It goes to show how our artistry is complementary to each other, whether it's taking a leading or supporting role when it comes to projects like these. 2018 was the start of our present-day stage. This was the moment we really took the time to reflect upon our friendship for all that it was and is. Of course, we always knew how important we are to each other, but I think it really hit us how uncommon the circumstances and events surrounding our friendship is. My mind still can't comprehend how extraordinary it is that we met on Pixie Hollow as children and are still best friends now as adults in university. Nowadays, we don't have time to hang out like we used to, but we still keep each other close to our hearts. We are amazed by the fact that on every corner across the internet lies a memory of us. All of this is proof of our decade-long friendship that we can visit any time when we want to remember what happened in the past. Just as if Kyra and Silver were here was etched into the walls of an entire city and was hidden in plain sight. In a way, the stories we made up as children ended up becoming how our real lives turned out. We were people under horrendous circumstances that somehow came out on top because of the strength we have inspired in each other. We both believe our history together is important to remember, as not even scenarios people daydream of can compare to the story of our real life. I think there's a lot anyone can learn and or take away from analyzing our 10 years of friendship. I hope that it's evidence that sincerity, ambition, creativity, and genuine love can sometimes be enough to give people the wings they need to escape their dreadful circumstances. Before I end this video, I just quickly wanted to say a short message to Sil. Silver, I can't express how incredibly proud I am of you and everything that you accomplished. You will forever be a part of my heart and my soul. I love you and I hope our friendship lasts longer than forever. Love, Kyra.